Hello and welcome to the seventh episode of Criminal Profiling. In this episode, we're going to be doing something completely different again. I'm going to be giving you three suspects and three charts, but you won't know which suspect belongs to which chart or which chart belongs to which suspect, and you'll have 1 week to match them. The suspect I'm really concerned about in here is suspect A. That's the one I really want you to find and to eliminate the other two suspects. Or you can do all three, match all three charts to all three suspects, which is ideal, really. And how we'll do that is I'll give you some information, some crime information, not too much, more realistic as we go along, as if it's an actual crime scene, and giving you some information about a crime scene, and then you can find that individual. And keeping in mind that our job is not to find the killer and go knocking on their door, but rather to eliminate suspects. That would be in the real world. Okay, so that's about it for that. And without further ado, yes, cheers, seventh episode. Okay. So, as my head shrunk, let's shrink the head, shrink the head. Okay, so I'm going to give us some information on suspect A to begin with. This is our main suspect, the one we're after, okay? And it's not as hard as it seems. I'm going to be giving some information at the end on some helpful tips. And you'll also notice a link down below in the description called Chapter 7 Murder Mystery. Inside that link is everything you need to do this with, including the meanings of the planets and the signs, everything there in one click, just to make it convenient. And I've also updated all my tables. So if you've downloaded them before, you might want to replace them because these are updated, they're alphabeticalized, they're a lot neater, more words added as well, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's get some suspect information out there, and then we can do a couple of tips, and that'll be it. It should be a little over half an hour show today, I hope. Okay, for suspect A, his crimes included theft, burglary, assault, sexual assault, multiple accounts, and murder. 5+. We don't know the actual number. It could be very high. We don't know. All committed using a claw hammer. Okay? At least I believe the first murder was, basically all of them were done with a claw hammer. And they are a serial killer. They're a career criminal with multiple accounts of thefts and burglaries. Multiple accounts. Unknown number of sexual assaults, no penetration, but likely over 20+ sexual assaults. I think one city was looking for 18+ sexual assaults just in one city. So we won't know that full number. There are 5 known counts of murder. Actual number unknown, though likely well over 5. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so they were a chronic bedwetter during youth. Suspect claimed his mother was a whore and that he had caught her in the sex act with different men and then beaten for catching them. I don't know if she was mad because he was watching or snooping, whatever she might have said at that time, and beat him for it. But he grew to hate his mother and likely developed a hatred for women in general during this time. So any information I'm giving you, I'm trying to make it as important as I can to help, to make it, more refined and stuff and straight to the point. Developed a lifelong nerve condition at a young age, which caused facial and bodily twitches. And here I give a hint: Mercury and or Uranus. I can tell you right off the bat, that's kind of a red herring. Don't, looking for a nervous twitch in a chart is pretty difficult. I mean, it could stand out as a health condition, but right off the bat, I can tell you, that may not be your 100%. Okay. Served time in the army during which he would commit murder of a female and sexual assault on another woman. He was convicted for the crimes, approximately age 22, and later paroled. I believe he went to Alcatraz too. So there you go. For those crimes, I believe. He took out at least one want ad for employment or other ploy to lure young girls. Young girls were the suspect's preference, possibly because he never got to date in his youth. So he wasn't able to date in his youth too much because he was in prison. So this could have been, just going back and for that reason and looking at younger girls who he never got a chance to date. And then, of course, he would assault and murder some of them. So victim information. Victim assaulted at bus stop, knocked unconscious, awakes in vehicle. Suspect tries to get victim to masturbate him. She jumps from the speeding car and survives. Ouch. And now we have a girl 13 picked up hitchhiking. You can tell this was in the 70s or so. Or, I used to hitchhike all the time. Forced to fillet suspect while he rams a hammer handle in and out of her vagina and beats her with a hammer. She survived. Okay, that's pretty brutal. 16 years old, and he's raping her with a hammer handle. Next, two girls, both 16, picked up hitchhiking. He drives to a remote area and begins beating one of them in the head and face with a hammer, probably because she wasn't complying with his demands. He always giving demands. If they don't comply, he beats them on the head and face with a hammer. The other runs and escapes. Both did survive. One, of course, pretty badly beaten and bleeding. Next, a girlfriend who intended on leaving the suspect was beaten with a hammer on the head so savagely her skull imploded. Her body was found 5 days later in a remote area. Okay, so he didn't take well to that. I believe that he said, and I don't know whether to believe him, of course, you never know what to believe. He thought she was sleeping with different men, was all promiscuous or something like this, and then killed her. But who knows if that's actually true? Hard to say. But one thing is true. He murdered her with a hammer. And so that's what we're concerned with. Now, next we have a woman in a car with having car trouble and was offered a ride by the suspect and then taken to an area where he ripped her clothing, choked her into semi-unconsciousness, raped with a handle of a claw hammer, beaten on head with hammer, and dumped in a field to die. The victim, however, would miraculously survive. Next, he picked up two young hitchhiking girls, beating them when they did not obey his commands, but he ran short of fuel to wherever he was going. He stopped at a station. The girls managed to escape. That's pretty ballsy, stopping at a station with two girls you abducted. Yet he gets away with it, and they didn't catch him on that. 2 days after number 6, the one we just read about the station above, the suspect abducted a woman, her body found in a cornfield. She had succumbed to vicious hammer blows to the head. This is a pattern over and over. And I can tell you now that there were nickel-sized holes in a lot of the skulls. He was hitting that hard that it would leave nickel-sized holes, clean holes right through the skull. So this guy is really hitting hard. He's brutal. So let's do this last one here. The victim accounts describe a very large man with a big head, bulging eyes, and huge hands. Inside the car were described Playboy magazines, a Bible, a handgun, and then on at least one occasion, a shotgun. Okay? We have some additional information for you. This suspect is known to be intelligent, domineering, narcissistic, antisocial, religious. He could quote the Bible as well as any minister, and would claim in the courts that he was following God's orders to rid the world of whores. He often talked about that outside of prison too. He often used that excuse or whatever. Or maybe he was hearing, who knows? That's up to you to work with, right? There was no penetration during the assaults, and use of a hammer handle on multiple occasions indicates that the suspect may be impotent. So there you go. That's it for suspect A. And I'd like to add a little bit. Not only did he penetrate them with a hammer handle, these young girls, and rape them with a hammer handle. That must... But he also used a tree branch on one of them. And that was, I believe, the one that said she was going to leave him. And then he got pretty mad at. He raped her with a tree branch. So that was the difference there. It may have been a hammer involved on that one too. But at least a tree branch was involved in at least one. And I believe that was the lady there, okay? I think that should do it for suspect A. Let's go to suspect B. Moving along. Okay. Suspect B. The crimes included theft, robbery, larceny, armed robbery, home robbery. That's it. Okay? That's it. A career criminal starting at the age of 14. It's 12 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Okay. Or was it 11 o'clock? It was 11 o'clock, wasn't it? Okay. Anyway, for those who remember that. Known to be fond of upper class living, older women, and whiskey. So there's a little bit of tidbit for you on the side. This person's known to be fond of upper class living, older women, and whiskey. Just how much you can do with that, I don't know. Traveled a great deal for his line of work, which was robbery. And one method of his robbery consisted of renting a house in an affluent area and casing the neighboring homes to find a suitable one to rob. Okay, and I believe he traveled quite a distance in some cases to do his work with, his job of robbing people, robbing homes. So that's it for suspect B. That's it. That's all you get. Okay. So we've got two suspects now who've been involved in theft and robbery. Okay. Keep that in mind. Suspect C. Final one. The crimes included theft, burglary, and mass murder. A little different there, eh? We've still got the theft and burglary. All three, theft and burglary. It's going to make it a little difficult, isn't it? Well, we'll see how you handle this. You know, let's see, mass murder. So we've got a serial killer and then we got a mass murderer, not a spree murderer where he's running down the street shooting everybody and their dog, but a mass murder on one occasion in one place. So with suspect C, a little bit about him. Placed in a Catholic orphanage at age 13. His mother had died. She was an alcoholic. I believe his parents were rodeo riders. His mother and father, I think, were rodeo riders or something like that. If remembering right. But anyway, that's as an aside. That doesn't play any role for you anyway. Don't worry. So at age 13, his mother dies. He's sent to a Catholic orphanage where the nuns physically and emotionally abused him for his chronic bedwetting, which remained into his adult years. Right into his adult years, he's still wetting the bed. Probably because they just lambasted this guy. I believe in this situation, he went from relative to relative. And they're all like, no way, this guy's peeing the bed. Get him out of here. And literally, they ended up just, the whole family and relatives just threw him onto the streets, basically, because he was bedwetting. Sad, eh? So obviously that made it worse, being abandoned. Let's see, he spent time in juvenile detention homes after joining a street gang and committing petty crimes, such as theft and burglary and stuff. Well, that's not surprising then. But I shouldn't even be talking. It's up to you to solve the crime and save the girl. Okay. Let's see. He served in the U.S. Marines during World War II. He was a decorated Korean War veteran. Okay, so he was also with the U.S. Army over in Korea there, I guess, or whatever. He read extensively, though he only had grade school education. With a strong interest in art, he would paint portraits, etc. Literature and music. He often carried around a guitar. Interesting. For the mass murder, the suspect, along with an accomplice, so there's two of them, robbed a home where they tied up 4 family members. The suspect would later claim to have cut the throat of the father and son, the son being age 15, and shooting the mother and daughter, the daughter being age 16, in the head. Apparently to prevent it being identified. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I'm just, just threw that in as a tidbit. I don't even actually know, or don't want to say, one of the two. There was no sexual assault during this home invasion and murder, the mass murder. And that is it for suspect 3 and suspect C. Let's see, that wasn't a Freudian slip, don't worry. Points to mention. All right, we're just flying. We're almost done. Points to mention, I just wanted to say we're primarily looking for the chart belonging to suspect A, okay? That's the one you want to focus on. You can list all three in the order of first, second, and third choice. Your first choice being, I think this is the one. If not, it's probably this one. That's my last choice, that sort of thing. Or you can do all three, which is recommended. And of course, you can do second and third choices for them as well, however you want to play it out. We'll take it up next week. We'll find out who the suspects were, and then we'll do a little bit of a bio on the suspect A and take a look at the chart and see how we compared and stuff like that. It'll be really cool. Okay, and number 2, in order to avoid confusion, you can focus on one suspect at a time and eliminate 2 others or list them second and third choice. Again, that's generally how I do it. If you want to know, I have the things I need to see most desperately, like that my 100%. Remember from the other shows? And generally, sometimes they only come down to maybe 1 or 2 words. Sometimes if you've got criminals like this and you're shuffling criminals, they often do the same things. Like in this case, we got 3 people doing burglaries, 3 people doing thefts, right? So if you're looking for theft, it might show that in a different manner in which they did the theft or how they did the theft, right? It's not going to be the exact same way. But let's say that there's an outstanding thing on theft and you have that as 100% and you've chosen yourself a planet or a sign or something like that. Well, all 3 might have that because they all 3 did it, right? This is where it gets a little tricky and you get those little ins and outs. And so I'm going to bring up last week. Was it last week? Yeah, we did the BTK. And we had a situation where we're doing the BTK versus Russell Williams. And we had so many similarities, right? And then all of a sudden, we found an outstanding part of Russell that was completely opposite to the BTK, which stood out like a sore thumb, but it was 100%. And that was enabled us to separate them and their charts from suspect to who we want, right? Or so on and so forth. So in this case, it's kind of the same. And with Russell, it was his need for daring and risk taking and all that with Uranus. Remember that? And that separated him from the BTK, who was anything but a risk taker, and risking it all for the excitement, which Russell did. And that was the difference. And we picked Uranus for that, and boom, we were able to separate the charts. And that was the outstanding feature because they had so many similarities. So that helped us. In this case, you can do the same thing, right? Okay. Now, in most cases, you're going to be looking for specific traits or things that are more subjective, which are represented by the planets, like a policeman or anger, a specific thing, or sadness. Sadness is never represented by a sign, So you might have the police force, which might be represented by Aries or Libra, right? And then you have your policeman, who might be Saturn or Mars. So it's kind of that thing. It's subjective and more objective. Although there can be very fine lines. So you'll just have to, I generally look at both. In this case, you kind of have an edge because we don't have a time of birth for these guys, right? We don't know where the houses are, so you don't have to look for houses, which is kind of sad because if somebody spent a majority of their life in prison, that's probably going to be denoted by, say, the 12th house. But you don't know where the 12th house is. And you can't be guaranteed that it's going to show in Pisces, the 12th sign. Remember, the planet is the actor. The sign that the planet is in is the role they're playing. And the house is the stage setting or atmosphere. If it's a government institution, that's Capricorn. If it's a government worker working for them, you might find a planet in Capricorn, but it's that planet that represents the subjective person. So that's kind of something to keep in mind for your subjective and objective stuff. And you don't have to worry about houses at all. So you can just focus on the planet, the sign they're in, and the aspects made between the planets. And that's it. Now all that's going to be given to you. Okay, so number 4. Because there are no known times of birth, there are no houses. Oh, God, we did that. I have only given information that is 100% reliable or very close to it. I've tried to give out information that at least can be helpful to you. Suspect B has very scanty information, but it's a very It's a scanty case. It's just a guy robbing places, gets caught, goes to jail, and that's kind of the end of the story, right? And we don't know much about his life, so we can't really add that because we're kind of on the beat here. We're on the job, so we're only getting certain information. We haven't talked to all their friends yet, or suspect friends, or anything like that, so we're not getting much feedback. We're still in the early stages. So I've tried to give you some powerful words for each that would help you to separate suspects. You know, and I didn't make it up. It's just part of what actually happened anyway. Let's see. So you need to come down with power words for each one, right? And then try to separate them through finding something that the others don't have, a trait, knowing what that trait is, like settling on a planet or settling on a sign, if it's an institution or some kind of, thing like that, or more objective. And then going after that. And that can help you separate it. That's one of my tips. That's how I generally do it, because you can get very confused very fast when you're looking at 3 different charts. That's why the list, that's why you already know what planets, and that's why you can look at it and only stick to that word you're looking for in the planet you've chosen before looking at the chart. Then just stick to it and see which one fits better. Kind of make a tick for that. Whoever gets the most ticks in the end should be your main person, right? And that's kind of the idea. But we'll find out how it works out in a week, right? So here's another thing. You're only eliminating suspects, not solving crimes. We already kind of went over that, because in the real world, you're not going to be sending Clarice to the door, to the butterfly, to the Mothman. Cheers. We're done. So you got 1 week. I'll come back then, and we'll take up the 3 suspects, and I'll wish you luck on that. I don't know if I can give any more tips. If you've been looking or watching the prior episodes, then you already kind of know what to do. You already know to pull out the primary things. I can give a little bit of help on one thing and one thing only, which is not a giveaway. Which is not a giveaway, and which everybody should be writing down immediately. Hammer for suspect A, right? Hammer. This guy killed everybody with a hammer. So he's not like the BTK. He's not like Russell Williams, where they're strangling, or BTK especially, who his whole world is strangling. You're into different waters now. Okay? And so you got a hammer to contend with. That's all I can say. That's not the be all end all, but that's one of the ones that you might want to look into, right? But you got to remember, if the other 2 suspects were doing something or using something which would bring out the same planet or sign, right, that you're trying to find, you got to be aware of that and then try to get those subtle differences, okay? Practice makes perfect, as they say. I don't know. But I guess that's about it. And I guess we'll close up shop here. We'll see you next week, and best of luck on this. As I said, in that link in the description below is everything you need in a single clip. Chapter 7, Murder Mystery. That's it. That link has everything you need with a single click, okay? And I hope I didn't miss anything. I feel like I might have, but who knows? So you have 1 week to solve the crime and save the girl. Okay, and peace out, and we'll see you next week. Good luck.